So I just want to say welcome to everyone to the Apprenticeship Illinois webinar series. Today's session is recruiting employers for apprenticeship. Before we dive into the presentation, just want to go over a few housekeeping notes to ensure a smooth experience for everyone. Uh, Again, this webinar will be recorded and posted on the Apprenticeship Illinois website later this week. You will get an email for the link to where that will be hosted later this week. Uh, we encourage you to stay on mute just to minimize any possible distractions, unless you're engaged in conversation with presenter or some other attendees. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put it in chat or the Q&A section. We'll do our best to address those either during the session, if our speaker wants to do that, or at the end of the session, there will be time for Q&A as well. If we don't get to your specific questions, you can always put them in the chat, and then I can pass them along to our presenter as well. There will be a survey at the end of the webinar, so any feedback is helpful to us as we plan some of the next future sessions. So appreciate your time taking the time to fill those out to help us make relevant content for everyone. And so with that, we can go on to the next slide. So just a reminder of the upcoming dates and different webinar series, webinar events that are coming up. So the next one is on August 15th, engaging with IBST stakeholders for successful partnerships. If you need the links for any of these, please put it in the chat, and then we can get those registration links for each of these out to you if needed. Next slide. And I would like to introduce our presenter. So Wendy is a senior technical assistance consultant in the Workforce Development Program area within the Human Services Division at the American Institutes for Research, AIR. There's the website for her, and then I will hand it off to Wendy.
Thank you. And thanks for having me today. I'm so happy to be here. I have the fortunate benefit of having gotten to work with fantastic folks in Illinois for the last 6 years, serving as a coach for state apprenticeship expansion. So really look forward to being able to work with all of you today. Today, this material that I'm bringing to you is actually from another project that AIR supports, which we are a contractor to the U.S. Department of Labor to serve as an industry intermediary nationally. And the way we chose to do this was to not become a sponsor of apprenticeship ourselves, but we've been helping organizations that want to become sponsors, especially group sponsors, do that. And so we're 4 years into the project. We have 37 active partners operating in 20 states. And we continue to help organizations that just want to learn how to build effective group sponsor apprenticeship programs. And when we did that, we created a lot of technical assistance resources. And this presentation is one of the training tools that we use to help all of those organizations really continue to develop their capacity and expertise in engaging business, because as we all know, it's the hardest thing to do in apprenticeship. And apprenticeship is this beautiful model sitting there waiting to be taken advantage of, but it's really hard to get employers connected into it. And partly because it's such an amazing program with so many design choices, and there's a lot of variation in how it gets implemented. So it's kind of hard for employers to wrap their head around it. So that's what we're doing today. And I'm happy to share with you that what we've learned. And these are all the tools and processes that we actually use ourselves at AIR, because we not only teach others how to do it, but we do it ourselves every day. So we have a team of people that are doing this every day. It's how we do it as well. So the learning objectives, you're going to learn about what's called the employer's journey framework. And you'll see that's a context for how you can think about engaging employers. We're going to share some tips for lead generation, successful lead generation. In other words, what you do, sending an email, going to an event, hosting an event, what you do to generate interest in apprenticeship, to generate leads would be the sales term, so lead generation. Learning objectives are to really get a sense of how much communications really matter. The details add up. And no is really never. So employers say no a lot, but it's not a never no. It's often just a not now no. And it's fun to think about it that way and to think about engaging employers throughout their life of no's until they say yes, right? Because it isn't just a one and done. So having a little fun with that thought. Feel free again to ask questions as we go along. I always have more material than we have time to cover. I'll cover things briefly, but if it's an area that you want to drill into more deeply, hit the pause button through chat and get us going to be able to serve the need that you really want. Yeah, I'm sure you're all coming from different levels of experience doing outreach. Even if you've been doing it and you only do it in a couple industries, a new industry could throw you for a curve. So there's art to all different occupations and industries and urban and rural and so much. So there's, I'm sure, a lot of knowledge on this team here, this call, that you could benefit from each other. I'll throw some things out there and we can just all learn together. So just dial yourself in from all your busy day already and just start asking yourself, how are you going to advance your employer recruitment? So what could I pick up from Wendy today that might give me a nudge to try something a little new or rethink something? So what is an employer's journey? This is a really common marketing tool. There's all kinds of variations out there, customer journeys, all kinds of journeys. And the idea is that you create messaging, marketing collateral. You have websites and flyers and presentations and videos and all of this stuff. And things just get loaded and they get really big and they get really detailed. And oftentimes the information is just not coming at the right dosage to a person as they're trying to think about making a decision. And making, an apprenticeship is a big decision. So you can imagine like big decisions like, changing jobs or buying a house or something. You go through a lot of different stages as you're thinking about making that decision. And so this is a highly simplified journey. It's just a really 4-stage one. I've seen 8-stage ones. There's really no right or wrong here. If you guys adopt this model in Illinois, you could change the words of the stage if you want to a little bit. It's really a tool that you make work for you. And so we like this version of it. And what it means is that, think about you're walking in the shoes. This is like human-centered design. You're being empathetic as to the employer that you're reaching out to. Where are they at in their decision journey with apprenticeship? Are they even aware that they have a talent problem that needs solved? Okay, maybe they're aware that they have a talent problem. So now they're looking for solutions. So they're in this awareness stage and they're looking for some really high level information that just even points out the fact that you could have a solution among a lot of other choices that might have solutions for them. So they're at this awareness stage. And then they start getting interested in some things. I'm interested in that internship, or I'm interested in learning more about this registered apprenticeship, or I'm interested in outsourcing work to India. I mean, like whatever decision and solution they're seeing on their radar, right? And they start becoming interested. It's usually not in one thing, right? They're interested in several things. They're still choosing. And now they're narrowing down and they're getting into considering. I'm really considering, between this house and this house, right? I've got it down to these two. Now I'm really going to get nitty gritty and compare these things and really make the decision, right? And that's how we do. We make our decisions by starting with an awareness. We start to become interested in certain things. We start to gather more information, compare, contrast, really start to sense it out. We try to narrow it down, and then we make a commitment, right? And so the idea is that you go on this journey with the employer, and this could be done in a meeting, but probably not. It's just a big decision. So this is obviously multiple conversations. It might involve lots of people. It might happen in a few days. It might happen in a few months. It might start to happen, and then we have inflation, and businesses have to put the pause on, and they need you to sit and pause with them, and then pick it back up when they can do it again, right? So I think starting to think of like having an awareness of where the employer is in their journey for solving a skills problem. Are they most interested in solving the skills problem for their existing employees? Are they most interested in solving new hire acquisition? Like, where are they at? What are their needs and where are they at in their decision framework? And who in their company needs to be involved in this decision journey? I've seen it happen a lot where someone will take and work with a client really successfully through this whole thing, and only to get to the end and the person says, okay, now I need to take this to my boss. And you're like, oh, well, if we had known that at the beginning, maybe we could have brought the whole decision group through this or understood how the decision was going to get made and make sure that we're bringing all the relevant parties along. So from awareness to interest, they get interested in it, to consideration, they're getting down to the nitty gritty, and then they're going to commit. We're going to kind of talk about each of these stages and some techniques that you could use in that stage to relate to the employer. And the thing I really love about this the most is that you're always asking yourself, where are they in their journey? And honestly, you can ask them that. Where are you? Are you interested? Are you considering? Where are you? And how can I best support you in that stage of your decision journey? What you see on the year actions is some guidance that I've been kind of covering. But in italics, we even have some examples of if you're thinking of having supporting materials like content, marketing content, collaterals, business cases, things on web pages, videos, whatever. You can see there is so many different types of things, self-assessments, webinars, videos, cost benefit analysis, case studies, all these great ideas, right? And oftentimes in marketing, we'll be like, oh, let's just have this whole list of all this great stuff. But then we forget like how to dose it out at the right time to the employer so they're not overwhelmed, so it just doesn't become too much at one time. So think of it, how do you dosage out the relevant information when they're ready for it to keep them moving along their decision journey? And like I said, they're going through it. They may need to tether somebody else in. You might need to catch somebody up. They may loop back. There may be a staffing change at the employer you're working with. You have to loop them back in and kind of go through it again. But that's the gist of the framework. Okay. So in all of this, and I'm sure, again, lots of you have experience on this. And if you're not, it's just take a few minutes to talk yourself through some of the language that is more friendly from a business perspective about how they think about workforce planning. Not all businesses do this. I mean, I know a lot of you will work with small and medium-sized businesses. They're all just trying to get by with a few people, wearing a lot of hats, and then you may be working with a large enterprise that has, people doing each one of these functions or whole teams. But really, it is businesses do understand workforce planning. They do understand looking at the supply of talent and skills they have. They do think about the demand. They do think about where they want to be as a company and what skills and capacity they need to get there. They do want to win new business. They do want to expand. So just what they're doing today may not reflect what they want to be, right? And so, and they do understand the gap analysis and try to develop strategies for how to meet that. So really, you should feel comfortable using these kind of terms when you're speaking with a business. They would recognize these more than if you use two maybe public workforce oriented equivalents. And I'll mention this again later, but if you don't have kind of a business friendly language, and maybe you wonder if you do, go find a friend, go network, go meet, somebody's friend and say in business, say, here's how I would say it. Would you get that? Just kind of really focus on developing really solid business friendly terminology for the concepts that you want to talk to them about. So the last point on this slide is really the most important. So solution analysis focuses on how to address the gaps for current staffing, future staffing, upskilling, things like that. The words that are really important to be familiar with are all the different sourcing models that are really commonly understood by business. and the aspects, the processes of recruiting, which is like largely outsourced, or training and development, which is often outsourced or very much managed in multiple ways. Contingent staffing models and outsourcing. And just the more you have fluidity in those common choices that employers are making in your market, so that when they're speaking to you, you can really pick up quickly on how are they really staffing and upskilling, reskilling, and recruiting new hires into their business. So the first stage, awareness, I talked about it a little bit. This is really, awareness happens when, you recognize you have a need. You allow yourself to recognize that. So we all like probably know the feeling of like you've just I don't know, you decided to buy a fitness watch. You finally just decided for some reason, I need one. You have a pain point and you decided that's going to solve it. And then all of a sudden, everywhere you look on the TV and ads and everywhere you see is just watches. And you just see everybody's like you didn't even notice them before, but then the minute you clicked in, it was like everywhere in front of you. That's awareness. And that's what you're wanting. Employers are going to find you when they have clicked in that they're looking for a solution, a talent, a skills solution. So that's why not every employer is ready every time. And you might say something and they look at you glazed over. They're just not hearing you yet. Like it hasn't clicked in. They don't have a need to be aware, so they're not aware. You can try to nudge them, and we're going to talk about that, to become aware of a problem, kind of draw it out of them, almost help them recognize it. But really the sense is that awareness happens. They come to you because they're aware, then they're going to see you, and then they see you, and then you can work with them. So to most marketing, most of inbound, driving someone, attracting them, having them find you in the ether, it's usually based on the marketing that you have. And so you guys have a lot of marketing in Illinois with Apprenticeship Illinois, and you have done campaigns and you participate in National Apprenticeship Week and lots of other things, webpage flyers, videos, things that need refreshing all the time, need new branding. We all know that. Social media, thought leadership, how you show up at events, what events you show up. Basically, it's like, I think of it as like the billboard, right? Like that was a fundamental, hey, I didn't know that existed till I saw the billboard. That's the kind of marketing that is really fundamental to just being found. So when an employer has surfaced up, I have a need for talent, you're showing up on the radar of possible solutions. And so that's really outside of all of your control, I think, but you have influence on it. And if you're missing components, it would be good to try to drive and make sure they exist in your markets, because I know you're representing all different places. And the last one, on-demand info sessions. This is kind of that more modern as we move into the way understanding how people like to become informed or learn about things. It's become really popular to have the 2 or 3 or 4 minute recorded kind of mini info session. And so that may get done at the state level, but in your area, it may be important that you have one that's really relevant to your area to draw employers in locally. And so, my encouragement is the technology's there for everybody to self-record. It's so easy. And the uptake on a little video versus reading a long email, it's proven to be much more effective. So if you've ever wondered, I would encourage you to be bold, be brave, and record and send it out. So now that we've kind of touched awareness, we're going to get into the interest phase. This is really, again, each step is a step closer to them saying yes. So the stakes get higher, and oftentimes the number of people that you're working with diminish, right? So you're reaching 1,000 to now maybe have maybe 200 in this next phase. It really whittles down quickly. That's why it's called a sales funnel. So in this one, they're interested in finding a solution. It might not be apprenticeship. They might be thinking about some other kind of solution for their problem. But this is where it's most important to discover their challenges. And I'm going to explain kind of the empathy-based approach. If you've had human-centered design or done any of that, you'll recognize some of the approach here. But it's really about listening first, and then it's about explaining the solution in the terms of their context. what is really happening with them and why apprenticeship specifically will help with their situation. And so it's always that listen first, and then explain how it might help them specifically. And so I'm going to move into some how to stimulate interest. So if they didn't find you and if they didn't just pick up the phone and call you and say, I'd like to learn about apprenticeship, then you're going to do the hard work to reach out. And you've heard words like cold calling, lead generation, um, networking, like just anything that you're doing to really yourself assertively reach out and try to poke at them and nudge them and hopefully attract them to call you. And so when you want to do this work, there's so many different ways to do it. So you've got the networking, you can go to events, you can have a newsletter. You know, we know they get read a lot at the beginning, and then sometimes people won't read them as much anymore. And so sometimes you just have to try new things or even old things and just sporadically do them once in a while and stretch it out. But the bread and butter of lead gen is still, I have a list of employers I want to reach. I craft well articulated communications, and I reach out to them and I email them and I try to explain to them that I'm here. Here's the problems that we can help you solve. And here's some maybe trends or activities happening in the area that you don't want to miss out on, that you would benefit from being a part of. I mean, apprenticeship is a beautiful solution because it's a labor market solution. The employer is going to look at it as how are we solving their immediate needs, but the real linchpin in all of it is that the more employers that do it, the more it solves the labor market needs in general. And so it's a really great story. And employers, they don't think of that usually right out of the gate. But when you explain it to them, the light clicks and they're like, oh, my whole region just became more competitive. Exactly. Across industries. So it's pretty cool. So you really have to understand your labor market. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm sure this is what you guys do every day. But maybe take a fresh look at it. Maybe you've looked at labor market data a certain way. I would encourage you to look for maybe another way to look at it. Think about it from a different perspective, or maybe spend time with an industry you're not comfortable with, that where there's opportunity, and ask yourself, how can I better understand that labor market? I'm just going to reference some data and different ways you can do that. And if you guys have ideas that I'm not covering here, feel free to throw them in the chat and share it with your colleagues. But we're going to do understanding the market, building target lists, and reaching out to employers. So couple things to just, again, set the tone, hopefully get you, feeling good about this work that you're going to do. Because a lot of us, I was one of those people. I was like, I didn't like to sell chocolate bars, when I had to do that for band when I was 12, like that was hard to do. But it was probably because I didn't have a methodology like this or a framework. And once I've learned these tools, I actually get really excited because these are the things that will unlock that precious opportunity where you get to speak with an employer, which is a real gift. And it's a really amazing thing to get to do. So that's what all your persistence is really about. So these are some statistics that are, you can see the link down there from HubSpot. That's a really popular customer relationship management software platform that's used globally for sales outreach. And so you just see these statistics. 41% said the phone is the most effective. 19% want to connect with a salesperson during the awareness stage. They want to connect. 60% want to connect during the consideration stage after they've researched the options. 20% want to talk during the decision stage. So you can see they want to talk. They want to make a decision. They want to talk. And I think sometimes we don't realize, like, they actually want to talk to us. So how do you get that conversation started? And then how do you keep it alive? And I really believe this, thinking about the decision journey and making sure that you're patiently going with them through awareness and consideration is key. And my favorite here is the 80% of sales require 5 follow-up calls. You're going to hear me say that several times. You can't follow up enough. With cybersecurity and the spam filtering going on right now, and the level of scrutiny with opening outside emails, it's getting harder and harder to get through. And so follow-up is important. And they say calls, it can be calls and emails, but I like to do both. I don't know if you guys do the layering. I find it really successful if I send an email to someone and then I follow up. I know I'm going to get their voicemail, right? Because they don't know me. And I just say, hey, just leaving you a short voicemail, wanted to let you know I sent you an email. Would really appreciate you taking a second to look at it. And then I say my name. And that allows them to pull my email out of spam and not be afraid, okay, that I'm trying to break in. So consider following up with a voicemail that you sent an email, just to point that out and see if you can get it pulled out of spam. Okay, so 8 out of 10 prospects want to talk to people, which I think is fun because we all want to do stuff in email, but remember to leave your phone number or call them and let them know that you're there because that's also really preferred for a lot of people. Cool. Here's another of my favorite things, and I learned this a long time ago when I worked at Sun Microsystems, way back in the day. And this is from LinkedIn, these statistics. So this is a large data set that this information is being drawn out of. But the reasons that they're going to pick you and listen to you and let you go on their decision journey isn't really because you have the most amazing, sexy solution to their problem. Oftentimes it's because they trust you and they have a feeling of a relationship with you and you're responsive and they respect that a lot. So there isn't an excuse for not being responsive. Like if you have a habit where your responses are well thought out and long and thorough and everything they need, that might not be what the service they wanted. They may have wanted you to say, I just received your email. I won't be able to read it till Friday. I'll get back to you by the end of next week. That is how you build trust and personal relationship and responsiveness. And then you can take the time and get the long, complicated information organized and sent out to them when you're ready. But that thinking about responsiveness differently, if you receive an email, picking up the phone, hey, just got your email. I'm going to look at it, get back to you later. Anything you can do is really going to be important there. Quality improvements and then value for the money. And that means you have to be articulate about the ROI of apprenticeship. Be really fluid in being able to talk about that. Okay, building your target list. And check time we're doing here. Pretty good. Okay, I'm on the half. So building your list. Two tips that you may not have thought about before. Again, you might have your own personal experience in this, so you don't need it. But maybe cross each other, you guys can help each other. But also within your centers where you work, there might be people that you could just go have coffee with and pick up some tips. But to be empathetic, you need to be able to walk in the shoes of the people you're going to talk to. So if you are going to be talking to people and you have not walked in their shoes, you don't know that industry, you don't know that specific, you don't know what it's like to be the frontline manager in a manufacturing facility. You don't know. If you don't know them, it's harder to relate to them. So the more that you can start to understand the different roles and the different situations that these people are in that you're trying to interact with, the better listener you're going to be. So you can build your own profiles. It's really an interesting thing. I can show you some samples of that. I could send them after this. You can also think about personas. It's really different to talk to an HR person than a frontline manager. And are you able to dial your conversation and your communications to be able to be more relatable to an HR person than a frontline? Or do you speak generically to everybody and expect them to adapt to you, right? So start thinking about the personas of who you're speaking with and how they might best be communicated with. So gather any existing business lists you have. You guys probably already have a ton of them. But sometimes there's these hidden ones that you don't think about, like council lists and other business lists that might exist, depending on size of the market that you're in. You can do some research to find other relevant businesses. If you haven't already, you probably have gone to EcoDevo organizations, co-working spaces. They have great access to businesses, chambers of commerce, trade associations, sector partnerships, things like that. You can also gather job posting data to see who's hiring. And I think you guys have some access to DMB, some internal tools that hopefully you're using fully, because if you have access to that, that's a paid for service. A lot of people would be very envious of you having access to that tool. So hopefully you guys are really diving in and using that to identify businesses that you want to reach out to. There's a lot of paid for services, and some of them are quite expensive. Zoom Info can be quite expensive. LinkedIn is like $80 a month for a Salesforce Navigator license. So whatever access you have to business lists, that's invaluable. And especially because you're in a market and you're going to be there for forever, really. And guess what? Those businesses, they operate as if they're going to be there forever. So you may be trying to get this employer on board. It may be a 10-year journey to get this employer to apprenticeship, right? And so thinking about that you're in this for the long haul is really, I think, important. And so the more that you can build your knowledge about your businesses and where they're at and what they're doing collectively to support that journey is great. I'm going to take a quick, I'm going to escape from this, and I'm going to quickly show you guys the National Labor Exchange as an example of a free resource that's out there that you could use. And so let's do this. I'm going to share again. So this is free. It's NLX, US NLX. So the USNLX.com is the URL. You can go up here. It's the National Labor Exchange. They used to not have a front end like this that was free to the public to get into this database. The database has been around for a really long time. They scrape data from all over the country and dedupe it, and then they repost it back out. You should check the data and see if you feel it's a good, accurate data for your area. If it's not, that's something to work with the folks there to see why and see what to do to improve it. But for the most part, I don't hear many problems with it anymore. What's really cool is it lets you search by like job title, keywords, or you can do cities or states or whatever. And so like I just threw a couple samples together. So this one, like I just typed in the word Illinois and it told me there's 62,710 jobs in Illinois. It right away says, well, would you like to do companies? Would you like to see which companies are hiring? You want to see which city? You want to see the 978 jobs in Rockford, Illinois, right? So right away, you can start drilling around and getting all kinds of insights as to what's going on in a market. In this one, I just did an example of, I typed the word cybersecurity, and then it says there's a lot of jobs in cybersecurity, but all of a sudden it let me just pick a state, or it let me pick a city. I could pick an employer. And so all of a sudden you could just start drilling and get to whatever point you want to see about what's happening. And if I want to look at a specific employer, I can click like this one is just United Cybersecurity in Illinois. So it says there's 26 United Airline jobs in Illinois in cybersecurity. And so then I can start going through them, right? If I'm meeting with United, or if I'm trying to think about cybersecurity, or I want to even look at what's happening in cybersecurity regionally, right? So you can really start to see, maybe you find things that you really like that you want to trend, you can come back in and check it on your own. But what I love is like, if I'm in here doing, I don't know, we'll pick one. I don't know, project lead is probably not an entry level. Here, project manager for information technology. That's an apprenticeable occupation, right? And maybe I'm really looking to try to find employers to do this. So what's nice is I can quickly get to a job description, which is invaluable. This is like, print this, right? Because you need this. If you get to talk to United, you need to have read this and understand, what about this is apprenticeable, or how could an apprentice program be a feeder, or what pre-apprenticeship program do you have? Like all of it, right? All of it for how could I help the employer build a pipeline or a program that's going to help them staff this position going forward. So you all probably get to job posting level data one way or another, but this was just an example of a free one that you could go out there, and maybe there's something new in there that you can learn that would help you build your target list of employers. I forget we're on Zoom instead of Teams. Okay. Um, Go back to the presentation. I'm not watching chat, so hopefully somebody's watching chat if there's questions.
I'll let you know. You're doing good so far, though.
Cool. Okay. And then attending events, you guys probably know that, and leveraging social media. Again, if you aren't really a lover of social media and you don't do a lot of it, if you are doing employer outreach, you don't have to be a big poster or a fan of it, but there are ways to mine it. And so if do have a profile and do go search, you can search in your area for industry groups, some interesting ones to follow. And you can really pick up a lot of business activity there. Businesses do a lot of postings and recruiting on LinkedIn. So I would say spending some time there would be valuable. And so then you're going to do, who you're going to reach out to, and you want to prepare communications. You may have communications that are generic that you just kind of send out at any point in time. You may actually do more thematic or time-based campaigns. So like a good example would be if the National Apprenticeship Week is coming up and you want to try to draw interest of employers, use that event to kind of draw interest of employer engagement, then you might think of reaching out, starting maybe at the beginning of October and sending them 3 emails, inviting them to participate in a certain event or something like that. Maybe you'll mention that you'll physically be there if they want to connect with you, and have them know who you are and be able to recognize you, have seen your face somewhere and things like that. So you can start to draw that kind of networking. But you're going to build a communication email, a campaign, usually multiple emails, to really do that reach out and try to bring them back in under some context. So when you're doing it, just 2 different tip lists I thought I'd put in here to help you all. First one, when over here on the the left-hand side, tailor the message. I mean, you can have your generic copy, but then you have to have some information that's customized to them. It just can't be a form. And then you have to validate yourself. And this is really interesting concept to think about, validating yourself. Like, it might be that you know somebody in common, or you just blatantly tell them, I found you on LinkedIn. I was interested, or I found your job posting on the National Labor Exchange and wanted to reach out. Tell them how you found them. It really makes them feel better to know how you found them. Okay. Alleviate your audience's pain. And we're going to go over this a little bit more, but this is basically what we've been saying all along. They have a pain, they've become aware of it. The way they'll connect with you is if you are saying, hey, we're here to help solve this pain. And they say, oh, that's the pain I have, that I want to connect with you. Keep it short, obviously, is really important these days. Easy and actionable. Back to the small dosage. Don't ask for everything in the first email. Ask them to do one thing. That would be the next thing. And then one more thing. And you are helping them on their decision journey as a guide. And be appreciative and a little vulnerable. Tends to go really well in cold calling. That was from Harvard Business Review Guide to Cold Emailing, which I thought was fun. And then on the right-hand side, this is the most generic and well-used kind of agenda for a sales pitch. So whether your sales pitch is like Shark Tank and you got 5 minutes, or you're in an elevator and you have 3 minutes, and or you have a half hour and you have glossy slides, this is the story. This is the storyboard. Vision and value, one sentence. Vision and value proposition in one sentence. The problem, so their problem, so they can recognize them. Solution, benefits, program specification. So just at a very high level, a little bit of technical information about apprenticeship. And then really important, number 6, the word now is social proof. I know I'm old because we used to call them testimonials, but the modern word is social proof. So examples of employers, and then the call to action. So these 2 checklists can be good. You can craft, or you may have existing comms and you want to go back and reread them with the fresh eyes. See if they kind of meet these suggested criteria. So I threw a couple of samples in here, copy, and I'm not going to go through them in detail. You guys have the slides, you can read them. They're not perfect. I tried to edit them a little and I ran out of time and I thought, oh, it's okay. It'll give you guys a gist of, like, maybe this is fresh for you. Maybe you already do this, but you can see that these emails start with them. Employers throughout the US are experiencing, right? A problem right out of the bat. You can see, data, really influential for businesses. Very specific data is very influential for businesses. Why, what to do, right? And we gave them next steps. So like in this example, on the 3rd paragraph, this the last sentence here where it said, learn more about innovative solutions. And then that business case is a hyperlink to a specific document. My call to action was for them to go to that one next thing, because I'm leading them through the employer journey. I didn't ask for anything else. I'm like, read that. And then at the last, I said, book an initial consultation today. Something really simple. Did I even talk about apprenticeship in here? I'm looking. I didn't mention the word apprenticeship. I just want you guys to notice that. So this is how we reach out to business. We didn't even mention apprenticeship because we don't need to yet. Okay. The next one, here's another sample. Oh, and the other thing about writing emails is no one is really good at this completely. So the way we operate as a team at AIR is we have this big OneNote, Microsoft OneNote. And anytime any of us write an email that's outreach for employers, we share it. So everybody can see everybody's. And it's so wonderful because if I have to write an email, I can go grab a little bit of Joe's content or a little bit of Megan's and put it with that other stuff I wrote. And I really like this one, and I can send it out. So we also help each other because it's hard to be fresh and write something new. So feel free to build your own library and exchange all your good ideas, because you need fresh stuff too. You can't just say the same old thing all the time. So again, this one opened up, again, familiar, right? Are you experiencing hiring challenges? So that's a very specific problem that they may experience. Hopefully, I have a good target list of employers for which they're going to go, yes, that's true. And now it's like you're not alone. And if you're willing to think differently, right? If you're experiencing, again, hiring challenges, we're emphasizing it again. And then in this one, I said, have you heard about registered apprenticeship but have doubts? Now, I might have said that because the target list I have, I know has already been pitched apprenticeship. So I need to acknowledge that they have heard about it, but they might have doubts, right? So you can see that we're crafting a message that's really trying to resonate with a target employer that we're trying to reach out. And this one says, don't waste another minute, talk to us. We're really always going with the talk to us. And we have a public calendar, and that I don't know how easily you make it for people to book time with you, but the quickest way to kill lead gen is to say, when are you available? Oh, I'm not available that day. When are you available? You just burned all your emails you're ever going to get from them. So try to think about having a more friendly way, the most friendly way you have at your disposal. Make sure you're using that to get time with an employer. So we just use the free tools that come within Microsoft Outlook to have public facing calendars. And so we just share the calendar and say, grab a time that's convenient for you. And we allow them to grab 15 minutes of our calendar. We don't offer hour meetings. And we get a lot of employers that'll sign up to meet with us for 15 minutes. And I tell you, right at that 15 minutes, they say, okay, that's good for now. Got to go. I'll think about it, get back to you. And they really respect that kind of iterative approach to reaching out. So I don't know, maybe you haven't done that yet. Maybe that's something to try and see if it works for the employers in your area, right? Because it does matter what the nature of the employers are you're trying to serve. I'm going to quickly go through a couple of other slides here to make sure we have time. I'm giving you some things to just think about in both in what you're going to say to the employer when you talk to them, but also what you're saying to them when you're trying to get them to have a meeting with you. So think a lot about the value proposition that matters to business. What is it that they say matters? You can often find this on their website, what matters to them. And if it does, think about writing a statement that positions apprenticeship as a solution to what matters to them. So if retention matters to them, it would be appropriate to say 94% of apprentices retain employment after their program ends. Now you put a statistic that's relevant to them. So whoever you're trying to really reach out to, whatever employers you're really trying to win over, do a little bit of this. What matters to them, and what positioning statement could I make that apprenticeship is a good solution or for them for that goal. So now we get to go into the conversation. Okay, so now why is this employer? What do they really need? And how in the heck am I going to find out what they need? Are they trying to build a sustainable pipeline? Are they trying to provide better internal career pathway growth? Are they trying to upskill some people? Are they just trying to have more cost-effective training? Like what are they thinking? Where are they? They may not even have thought this out, right? So you come armed with kind of, this is where they might be. You're thinking about what might their business case be for reaching out to you. And so what you want to do in this very first meeting, and again, I'm sure many of you have this practice and do it. And if you have suggestions for how to do this, in addition to what I'm providing, feel free to share with each other, with your colleagues, and you all grow together. But there was a link given to you guys for this guide for listening. It's pretty fun, especially for those of you that may not have worked with employers or inside a company in the function of recruiting or workforce management within a company. And so in this listening guide, you're going to see the approach is, this is blown up, so it's a little bit easier to see. So if you're looking at it on page 2, there's a guide here with some tips, and you can literally just print this out and use it while you're thinking about, while you're listening to an employer, while you're interviewing. And the idea is that you really use empathy-based approaches to interviewing, and that is what can you share a little about. That kind of terminology is proven to open people's minds. You're trying to get them to talk, right? Like the first time you meet an employer, they should do the talking. You should do very little talking. You should do a lot of listening and a lot of prompting. And then at the end, you'll be all just so anxious to share everything about apprenticeship, but you might not have time, and you might just be able to say, hey, this is what I heard from you. And based on all of this that I heard, I really do think it's worth your time to, consider. Again, you're using your stage language. Now they're interested. Now, I think it's worth your time to consider apprenticeship, and we don't have enough time today. So can we book another time? And now I can bring back and show you exactly how apprenticeship could meet the needs that you shared with me today. That's usually how you get the second meeting, right? They were heard. They trust that you are there as a good partner in good faith. You're not going to sell them something they don't need. You've listened, and you're going to come back and invest in explaining to them in detail how this might work for them. That's a really elegant approach, and it typically works. And so I'm just going to cover a couple of these. We don't have that much time, but this would be a fun activity for you to do with people, especially if you have business people that are your friends and you just want to practice or try to mess around with this and see how it works. Might be fun. So the idea would be, like, if you want to know more about their tech workforce, you could say, can you share a little about the structure, your organizational structure? And then you stop talking. And what you're going to listen for is what is in their answer. Are they talking about organizationally, what's the structure, kind of who's where, what's their org chart look like. And what you're listening for is where might apprenticeship get seated. It wouldn't fit in everywhere in every company. It usually fits in a couple of places really well. And you're listening for where might that be. They may say, oh, and then we have this division, but we outsource all that to this person, and we have this, and we do it this way. And you might start hearing where apprenticeship might fit. So you'll listen for that. And then you say, okay, well, that's great. Where can you share a little bit about your job roles, what job roles? And you're going to listen for, are they talking about any that they struggle to fill? Are they talking anything about pay or wages or just anything, right? You're just listening and writing it down. Can you share a little bit about the work setting? Maybe this is a business that you really don't have a sense of what the work setting is like. Can you share a little bit about the work setting? And they might express some things that make apprenticeship seem like it'd be a viable solution. They may say some things and you're like, ooh, that wouldn't be really great for apprenticeship, right? So this whole time and this whole sheet just gives you all these different prompts that you could say, and then you could listen for. And if an employer starts to go in like on job roles, tell me a little bit more about the job roles at your company. And they go on and on. They say, but this one we can never keep filled. We have perpetual openings. We have such high turnover, or we have a whole bunch of people that are going to age out and we're going to have this huge gap and we don't know what we're going to do. Then you can say, tell me a little bit more about that. If you didn't get quite enough, like they were brief in their answers, you can then say, tell me a little bit more about that. And then stop talking and let them talk. Okay. So that is how you use this guide. And again, feel free to take it. And if you guys want to add other things and make an Illinois version of this listening guide, I welcome you to this information. Okay. Explaining your mission at a high level. You guys are probably the masters at this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but just again, being really open about apprenticeship as a reskilling, upskilling solution, which honestly, I feel there's more uptake on apprenticeship now for reskilling and upskilling than for new hires. But you would know your market. It might be different in your market. But making sure that those things are clearly understood, because I'm not sure all employers pick up on that very quickly. They tend to think of it as a new hire model, and it isn't necessarily. And then also being really sensitive to when you're using the word sponsor in business. Sponsor usually has something to do with marketing, like you sponsor a conference or you sponsor an ad campaign or you're the sponsor, but not, it doesn't really jive with program administration and responsibility. So that word can throw a business at first because they're like, are you asking me for marketing dollars to sponsor a program? Like what? So sensitivity to the fact that they could own and operate their own registered program, or they could be a hiring partner through an intermediary or another apprenticeship program. Trying to be real plain in your speak and make sure they understand that nuance is really important. Same thing with your outreach emails. You may do a lead gen campaign to promote apprenticeship from an upskilling, reskilling perspective. I would argue that would be enough for somebody to swallow. So the problem statement there would be upskilling and reskilling. You would not introduce new hire in that outreach campaign. That would be too much information. You're trying to do too much in one time. So these are all kind of some, for you all, them are like, oh yeah, we know this about apprenticeship. But for employers, just these 3 bullets can throw them for a loop right at the beginning. So use business speak. I'm not going to go over that. You guys can look at that. Be prepared to address misconceptions. I know you guys in Illinois have had different resources on this. You probably have some things at your disposal. Here's some of the ones that we hear a lot. Have good answers for these. When you are going to be in a conversation, I've seen conversations with employers get really derailed when somebody in the meeting throws out a misconception and the person doesn't have a good answer readily available. So doing a little homework on misconceptions and having nice polished answers to, hey, that might be true in this situation. Let's explore that more. Or no, yeah, that might be understood, but I have examples of situations where that's not the case. And if you would like to be connected with that employer to learn about it, we can. So try to dispel myths. Okay, we're in the consideration phase. You're going to think about how to pitch apprenticeship. You guys probably all have your pitch down. Rethink about it. Think about it from the employer's perspective. They may want to know things about how to find partners or how to prepare mentors, and they maybe want to understand more about what happens if the apprentice doesn't work out and what are the reporting requirements. And they want to think about all these things about how it affects their business before they get into thinking about designing, building, registering a program. When they're really trying to decide if apprenticeship is right, they're still way up at this much higher level, trying to think of the overall impacts that this decision might have on them. So also try to meet them there at this stage in their decision-making process. So then they decide, and now you're in this situation of like, what? And I probably don't have the perfect answer on this, and Nate can follow up with you if I don't say it quite right. But and my general point to make is that some of them will say yes, and then you're going to have a referral process of like if they want to build their own program, what are you going to do with them? Or if they want to get connected to a local intermediary, you probably have a different referral process for how you refer them out to an intermediary to be a hiring partner, something like that. But then I just want to emphasize, have an action plan for them if they say no, not right now. Because remember, it's not no, never, it's no, not right now. And offer ways to help them stay engaged, and just realize that for them to adopt apprenticeship, it needs to have more than one person inside the company that understands it and that believes in it. They need to have more buy-in, more knowledge to be effective apprenticeship, either sponsors or hiring partners. So, make sure they sign up for your bulletin, make sure they get invited to National Apprenticeship Week to get excited and be a part of the movement and figure out how to do that personally. Ask them if they want to keep learning about apprenticeship, even though they can't do it right now, that you're willing to help invest in training key people in their company so that one day they can make the decision of yes. And so show them the Registered Apprenticeship Academy on apprenticeship.gov, the Apprenticeship Professionals Learning Network. There's lots of free resources for them to deepen their knowledge about apprenticeship. So next time they're more ready to say yes to you. And ask them if they want to meet another employer. A lot of times that B2B influence is like the biggest thing ever for flipping an employer to a yes. And then the final bullet, which is you always must do, is ask them if you can reach back out to them in 3 to 6 months to see if anything's changed. Okay. Always follow up, follow up and follow up and follow up all the time, and document what you do. So whatever system you have for recording what's going on, where they are at in their decision journey, what you've already given them to date, what you think your next thoughts are, it's invaluable as you try to do this over the years across accounts. The documentation is invaluable for you. So document, 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 and questions. Do we have any questions? Okay, I will leave you with a thought. You can do this on your own time, but kind of close and give yourself a closing on this of how are you going to advance your employee recruitment? Are you going to go out and find business member organizations? Are you going to deepen your knowledge of some of the employers that have said no that you really need to say yes? Are you going to get organized around this decision journey and start to maybe embrace this kind of framing and how you do things? Are you going to refresh collateral? Are you going to deepen your business speak? Like just pick one thing and shift a little bit forward. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome.
Nate, if
Thank you
you're
so
closing, or
much.
Jordan. Okay.
Yep. Well, Nate, if you have anything to add, feel free. But thanks again, Wendy, for presenting. Again, a
Yeah.
reminder, this will be recorded and put online, and email will be sent out with that link later this week. And you can shoot me or Nate any questions if you do think of something later. Unless, Nate, you have anything to add, we can go ahead and wrap up.
No, thank you so much, Wendy, for your presentation. And like I said, please feel free to follow up with myself. And if you have questions for Wendy, I'm sure she'd be glad to connect with you too. So thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Have a great day.